Hello, welcome back to The Dirty Truth. I'm Benjamin Harris, and today I'm going to directly attack Professor Dave. First, let's talk about HERO. This is a nonprofit organization started to increase the quality of lives of this nation's heroes, veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. Their mission is dedicated to giving back to the veterans and first responders by providing action-packed, fun-filled family vacations, once-in-a-lifetime hunting trips, and deep-sea fishing trips. Their motto is meant to reflect the courage of our nation's heroes, and it comes from Isaiah 6:8. Also, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me." If you'd like to donate to Heroes, or you just want to follow along on their fundraising activities, please check them out at www.herooutdoors.org. All right, now back to the program. So, like I said in this video, I'm gonna go after Professor Dave and all of his false ideology, right? So he did a video that was a response to James Tour, 700 Papers and Still Clueless, part 1 of 2, right? So he's constantly attacking Dr. Tour. He's got to tear him down, right? And Professor Dave sucks at doing research. And I'm going to point that out along with Dr. Tour and a couple other people, right? So in his video, he does a quote from Manfred Eugene, who won a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1967. This is what the quote says, and this is how his paperwork ends, right? Evolution appears to be an inevitable event, given the presence of certain matter with specified autocatalytic properties, and under the maintenance of the finite, which is free, energy flow necessary to compensate for the steady production of entropy, right? So that's, you quoted that, saying it ends this way, but how does it start? So whenever he's showing the slides in his video, if you just go back to the slide before that, one paragraph up where it's not highlighted, Eugene has asserted, this is what it says, Eugene has asserted that the first steps of biological self-organization occurred in a structuralist soup, certainly involving functional molecular structures such as nucleic acids and proteins. And what Dr. Tour's whole argument is that nobody has ever built these proteins in a lab, in this soup, right? You do it in laboratory conditions where it's clean and sterile, but not in the soup conditions for early Earth, right? So, and see, this is the part that you don't understand, Professor Dave. So check out Dr. Tour's video. Dr. Tour exposes the false science behind origin of life research. Okay. He points out in this video that no one has ever shown how it's possible to make the required nucleic acids and proteins in this soup. He even goes as far as showing these people, the ones that you quote from, that they buy the stuff. So if you actually read the articles that come out, he says, oh, we do it hands off. So meaning they just let the chemical reactions go. That's not how they do it at all. They let the chemical reactions go and they get a bunch of garbage, and in that garbage it's got this one little protein, and they say, oh, look, it made the protein. Now they go buy the protein from a lab so it's sterile, and then they bring it back and start step 2. And then if it produces a protein and all this junk, then they say, oh, see, it can produce the protein. And so then they go buy that second compound and keep going. So none of the steps, they don't use the stuff that they made. They go buy the stuff necessary. So it's smoke and mirrors. And he points that out very specifically because he's got the paperwork. He's got the research paper where it's got everything cited on there because he has to write it on there. So you can't lie about it, because then then the whole paper's invalid. So you show a dumb little chart where you say physical phenomena equals chemical phenomena, and then this equals autocatalytic symptoms, which equals living symptoms, right? So you just skip over the physical phenomena. What you're talking about there is the Big Bang. How did everything get started? Everything just flashed into existence from nothing, right? And we'll talk about what Stephen Hawking says about that in a minute. But that's, the laws of physics govern the universe. So the laws had to be written and understood before everything snapped into existence. It didn't just start happening. And then the chemical phenomena, that's what Dr. Tor is talking about. Nobody has produced in a lab anything that you can use to create life. It's never ever been done, not once. Because then we could just say, oh look, this Nobel Prize winner is the one that did it. Nobody has a Nobel Prize for that. That is a Nobel Prize hands down for anybody that does it first. So who's being deceitful here? You skip right past all the scientific facts that no one can explain the Big Bang, and just pops into existence, and then you skip past the scientific fact no one's ever made any of the required things for life in the soup, right? Dr. Tor points this out. So you cannot skip the first two steps and just jump into the third step, because you leave out where these systems needed the building blocks of life come from. It didn't just happen. If it's all from a chemical process, show the chemical process. That's what Dr. Tor is arguing against. So when he attacks these people, he attacks their work. He doesn't bring God of the gaps into it. He just says, show me what you've done, right? So as Dr. Tor points out, chemists can't even do it in a lab where it's it's clean and each step is controlled. So how can the soup do it? He even explains why the soup can't do it, and it's exactly what the people that you quote say. It must have happened first. It must have happened fast because the elements break down rapidly. Every chemist in the world understands this. Evolution couldn't have been over millions of years, because the process that you're talking to degrades in like 5 hours. And then here in a minute, they'll talk about the stuff that they add to it to kind of make it live a little longer. So it goes from 5 hours to 44 hours or something. It's less than 2 days. You have to have that process happen fast, not slow. Every chemist on the planet agrees with this. Dr. Tor then goes on to explain from the work of the people that you quote, so it's their words, not his, that they buy the elements already pre-made for each step and keep them from breaking down by adding a synthetic solution. That's man-made. So it's all smoke and mirrors. You can't add a synthetic solution that's man-made into the soup to keep the soup alive long enough to create the thing that you want, and then say this is how it happened 4 billion years ago. They didn't have the man-made element. So people like you are a cancer. You just flat out lie. You spread half truths all the time. So I've told you I wanted to debate, but let's do it like this. Let me propose a very brand new kind of debate that nobody's ever done before. And I bet you, Joe Rogan, if you watch this video, please advocate for this. I bet Joe Rogan will do this for free. I bet he'll commentate for free. All right, I propose a debate, a boxing debate. Okay, so the title of it will be "Put Your Face Where Your Facts Are," and like I said, I bet Joe Rogan would he'd help set this up. All right, so here's the rules. Because me and you both aren't doctors, right? You get 3 experts in any field that you want, and I get 3 experts in any field that I want. All right, and then each one of us makes a statement, just like in a debate format, right? And then we have our experts argue our statement to a panel of, I would say, 11 of the top scientists in the world. It has to be an odd number, right? It's got to be, it can't be an even number. That way, if the panelists disagree, whoever has the majority wins the argument. All right. So whoever has the correct statement then gets to punch their opponent in the face with regulation boxing gloves. All right. This would continue until one of us quits or is knocked out. And you know, this way at the end of the debate, I can literally say I beat the truth into you. So, you know, do you stand by your statements enough to climb into the ring with me and box based on true scientific fact statements? I think not, because you're a coward. Because under these conditions, you can't misrepresent science because there's going to be painful physical consequences. So all of the stuff that you say that deliberately misrepresents science, your board members aren't going to be able to argue, so you can win your statement. My board members are just going to show the misrepresentation, then I'm going to get to punch you in the face. All right, so the bottom line here is Dr. Tour has broken down one of your references, and this is in the video I was talking about. Remember, this is based off people you reference, so he shows their published paper and explains them. So in this video, he has this guy's published paperwork talking about this subject, right? Because me and you, like, I haven't published any papers. Professor Dave, I don't think you've published any papers. So we're only talking about other people's papers. So the difference here is the guy that I reference, which is Dr. Tour, who for starters is well published. And, you know, you haven't attacked his work, but he's attacking the published work of the people that you reference. So he's showing that what they're saying isn't what he actually did. So it's not true like how you make it out to be. And in the video, he even talks about a conference that he was at with the guy's paper that he's talking about. That guy was in the audience. He was right in front of him. So he's literally said this to the guy's face. So you're like, oh, I bet he won't say it to their face. Well, he already has. He'll say it to any of them's face, right? So also, you know, while you're at it, while you're watching Dr. Tour's video, again, the name of that video is hang on. Dr. Tour exposes the false science behind origins of life research. All right, so after you watch that one, watch this one. Origin of Life Reality Check. Dr. Rob Stadler educates Professor Dave on abiogenesis. Or you can read either one of his books. The Scientific Approach to Evolution, What They Didn't Teach You in Biology by Rob Stadler, or The Stairway to Life, An Origin of Life Reality Check by Rob Stadler. So, you know, here's yet another doctor explaining how you are comically wrong and misrepresent science. You know, so you already got Dr. Tour's bio, right? We already know what he's done. So here's Dr. Rob Stadler's bio. He received a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering from Case Western Reserve University, and then a master's in electrical engineering from MIT. And then his PhD was in medical engineering that he got from Harvard at the MIT Division of Health Science and Technology. And as a scientist in the medical device industry for over 20 years, he's obtained more than 140 U.S. patents. He's also been elected Fellow of the American Institute for Medical and Biomedical Engineers, and he's contributed to medical devices that are implanted in millions of patients worldwide. So both of these doctors could be a professor in a whole range of classes that would be required, you know, for you to get your master's degree. But you're saying, hey, y'all don't understand it, you should listen to me. That's not how it works, man. You don't understand it. These are the people that would be teaching you the information, right? So here's a fun fact. You know, both Dr. Tour and Dr. Stadler talk about, you know, talk about this in their videos, and then you kind of admit to it in a video where you talk about your degree. You say that you dropped out of the master's class to pursue music. All right. Now, I'd be willing to bet that you dropped out because either you suck at research, which both Dr. Tor and Dr. Stadler kind of point out, or the research actually points to God, and you refuse to accept the reality of it all. But I firmly believe it's because you suck at research. You got to do a lot of research, and then you got to write your thesis and all this other stuff to get your master's and your doctorate. Now, me, I don't have any degrees, but I'm very good at research. And seeing your lies and cherry picking agenda. As I point out when you quote Eugene, you remember the part where no one has ever created in a lab the chemical process needed to start life, which is evident in Eugene's own writings and backed up by both Dr. Tor and Stadler. That's research, man. Just do some research. If you would do some honest research, you wouldn't be saying all the things that you say on YouTube. You couldn't. If you understood what you were reading. Evolution is dead. This is backed up by Nathaniel Jensen in 2 books, Replacing Darwin and Traced. And I've given his credentials in another video, but he does research in DNA, and we can trace the human DNA back to the beginning. If you do a DNA test now, they can tell you your lineage all the way back to Noah's 3 sons, and then tell you which one you're a descendant of. So it has a beginning, and we know this. And with the Y chromosome, it gives a timeline, because they can test the mutations between father and son in the Y chromosome, and it gives a timeline of how old the lineage is, and it goes all the way back to Noah's 3 sons, and then they can trace that back to Adam. So we have a timeline that's very young. It's like a little over 6,000 years. So it's a young Earth, not an old Earth, and it's provable. So what did Stephen Hawking say? This is what I was talking about in the beginning, right? Where he's talking about the beginning of the universe, where you just kind of skip over that first phenomenon, right? The universe and the laws that govern it. So what does he say? He says the remarkable fact. This is Dr. Stephen Hawking's quote. The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. And the numbers that he's talking about is the mathematical problems in the physical laws and the laws of physics. It's so finely tuned that it seems like it's been finely tuned to make possible for the development of life. Because if you change the properties of gravity by 1 part in 10 to the 40 power, we don't exist. And that's just one of the factors. The cosmological constant, if you change that math by 1 part in 10 to the 120th power, we don't exist. It's finely tuned. All right, so I mean these are doctors in your own field, So you just look stupid in your own field. Now, you further embarrass yourself when you go into a debate with Jesse Lee Peterson. And this is a great example of what I'm talking about, where I say that you suck at doing research, because your lack of research ability here is very evident. You did a debate, and then you admit to not doing any research to back up your claims. You're like, oh, I'm not a expert in any of this, and I haven't done any research. So next time, how about just do a little research? All right, say here's a great start. Dr. Thomas Sewell. He attended Howard University and then transferred to Harvard, where he graduated magna cum laude with a degree in economics, and then went on to receive a master's in economics from Columbia University, where he studied under future Federal Reserve Chairman Arthur Burns. Sewell wrote his thesis on the founder of communism's business cycle theory. Then Burns recommended Sewell for a doctoral fellowship at the University of Chicago, where he studied under George Stigler and Milton Friedman, both of whom would later become his colleagues at the Hoover Institute. Now, I bring up Dr. Sewell because in the debate with Mr. Jesse Lee Peterson, you claim that slavery was an institution of racism. So, first of all, this isn't even a subject that you should be remotely talking about because you don't understand race. But because for starters, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen proves through DNA there's only one race. It's the human race. We are all related. There's a lot of different colors of people, but it's just one person, right? It's the human race. All right, but you keep insisting on a reference. In the video, whenever you're arguing with Mr. Peterson, give me a reference. Where are you getting these numbers from? So here's a reference. Dr. Sewell's book, the Thomas Sewell Reader, specifically the chapter titled Twisted History, which is about slavery, because that's what y'all started talking about in the beginning of the video. Or better yet, read the National Geographic article titled 21st Century Slaves. All right, this is what it says because, I know you suck at research, so you're probably not going to look this up anyway. This is what it says. It says there are an estimated 27 million men, women, and children in the world who are enslaved, physically confined or restrained and forced to work, or controlled through violence, or in some way treated as property. Therefore, there are more slaves today than were seized from Africa in 4 centuries of the transatlantic slave trade. So that's 11 million. Now, during the 4 centuries, they're talking about 11 million total. And about 450,000 of those, or 4% of the total, were brought to the United States. The modern commerce in human rivals, the modern commerce in humans rivals illegal drug trafficking in the global research and in the destruction of lives. So every color of human at some point in history has been enslaved. It wasn't just black people. So in Africa, back then there were 11 million slaves that came out of Africa. Only 450,000 came to America. So where did the rest of them go? Some of them stayed in Africa, and then they went to all other nations around the world. So, you insist that slavery is an institute of racism, right? That's what your claim is whenever you're arguing with Mr. Peterson. And it's not an institute of racism. It ain't got nothing. And his argument is that slavery hasn't got nothing to do with racism, and he's right, because every color of human at some point has been enslaved, mostly due to wars. All right, so just do a Wikipedia search called white slavery. All right, this has nothing to do with race. You simple-minded little fool. Right? Read the whole Wikipedia article, and because you suck at research, I'll just give you an overview. This is what it says. Enslavement of Europeans was banned in the early 19th century, while enslavement of other groups was permitted. Even after several measures to ban slavery in the late 19th century, the practice continued largely unabated into the early 20th century. As late as 1908, female slaves were still sold in the Ottoman Empire. And in case y'all are wondering, that's modern-day Turkey. So yeah, go ahead. Try to explain how your claim slavery was an institute of racism works when everybody owned slaves of all colors. Every shade of person that's ever existed has been a slave. You're just stupid. Racism is something that's coined in America because we have so many people of different color. It's a political tool to keep the nation divided. That way the government can do what they want to in the background while we bicker over the color of our skin. They do it in Europe too. But it's not. They don't consider it racism in Europe because it's like classism. They bicker between the classes of people. All right. Now you're a YouTuber. All right. So This is how you make your money, and you need references for a debate. Man, you really suck at this. So here's a video. Watch this video. Black slave owner and breeder in South Carolina. The interesting story of William Ellison. Now, in that debate, whenever you were talking with Mr. Peterson, he brings up the fact that there were black people in America that owned slaves, and you were like, "Oh, I don't believe you. What's your proof? Yada yada yada. I don't understand. I'm retarded, right?" Watch that video. It's about William Ellison. William Ellison was was the fourth richest black man. He was the richest black man in South Carolina and the fourth richest black man in the South. Okay? Or you can read the book, Black Masters, a free family of color in the Old South by Michael P. Johnson and James L. Rourke. This book talks about William Ellison's life, and it talks about his slaves. And the video even shows the actual paperwork where William Ellison bought his property from Stephen D. Miller, who was the former governor of South Carolina. You know, Ellison was richer. He was wealthier than more than 90% of whites in America. It talks about during the Jim Crow law era how all of this reality was hidden. And, this is when racism really started. It's how can we divide a nation? So they hide the truth of it all. And then the way the video ends, this is the best part, right? Because you say slavery is an institution of racism. How did slavery in America actually start? Is there a court hearing that you can go to and look it up? So check this out. So this is a fun fact, right? The first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. This man's name was Anthony Johnson. In 1654, it was time for Anthony to release John Caesar, right? Caesar was an indentured servant. Now this goes back to the stuff that you talk about in the Bible, where the Bible talks about slavery. The Bible doesn't talk about slavery like what you think. The Bible talks about indentured servants. This is what they're talking about, right? So Anthony Johnson was a black man in America that had an indentured servant who was a black man, John Caesar, right? So instead of releasing his servant at the end of the time frame, Anthony told Caesar he was extending his time. Caesar didn't like that. He just left and became employed by a free white man named Robert Parker. All right, Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Northampton court in 1654. In 1655, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold John Caesar indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanction for blacks to own a slave of their own race. Thus, Caesar became the first permanent slave and Johnson the first slave owner. Do some research. You sound stupid when you don't do research. This is the reality of it. Do they leave it out in the history books? Yeah, absolutely they do. Why? Because they want the term racism coined. They want the divide in America. They only talk about it in America. Right? Do a little research. Then you might, if you get good at research, you might be able to go back and get your master's and maybe your PhD. But then you still would have to go through people like Dr. Tour, because they're the doctors that you disagree with are the ones that's going to be teaching your class. So that's not going to go over very well. So let's do a debate. Come on, man. You want to debate on slavery, on racism? You want to debate on any of these topics? And let's put your face where your facts are. Let's get Joe Rogan involved, and we'll set up a boxing debate. It'll be the first ever in the world. Because I would really love to beat this stuff into your head. I hope everybody's liked this video. Please like and subscribe. Leave some comments. If you disagree with me, perfect. Put something put something with some content in the comments. You know, don't just troll me. But like I said, like and subscribe, and y'all have a great day, and I'll talk at you next time.